nearly 30 years later. It was the first time I had a dream about that, about Weston. Dreams are funny things. It's said that we have multiple dreams every night, but we only remember those that happen right before we wake up. Most of the dreams I remember when I wake up disappear quickly from my mind, even if I want to remember them because they are at the instance I wake up because I found them funny, scary, or profound. The content quickly evaporates from my mind. But every so often there are dreams of different intensity. I don't wake up remembering them, they wake me up. They fill me with stress, humor, or confusion. They sometimes leave me feeling guilty for what I did in the dreams, even if there was no equivalent to my waking life. I've had to repress anger at my loved ones for what happened in the dreams. Even if in the real world they hadn't done anything. Sometimes I have spent days, weeks, and I guess now decades examining what happened in those types of dreams. I don't really think my subconscious is going totally rogue. They have to mean something. As the years come by, I realized the Weston dreams couldn't have been about Joel. It was weeks away from our first date when I had it. And it couldn't have been about caffeine because I hadn't decided yet to give up Coke and Pepsi. And as terrific a player as Jerry Stackhouse was, his dunks against Virginia Tech and Duke had not happened yet. But I knew I was about to have my first capital trial. My client Rod was 17 years old when the crime happened. The prosecutor claimed that Rod and his accomplice, who were both African American, had robbed and murdered a white teenager while he was begging for his life. The state claimed the murder was racially motivated, which was giving them an excuse to inflame the jurors' implicit bias and explicit racism against our kid. The state had already secured a death sentence against Rod's 18-year-old co-defendant, and though the prosecutor firmly believed the co-defendant and not Rod was the one and only shooter in the case, he still wanted Rod to be put to death. I'd grown close to Rod, cared about him, and did not want him to be harmed. I felt the only thing that was standing in front of Rod's execution was my co-counsel and me. So yeah, I was stressed, scared, freaked out. And as I looked back on it, the years went by, it was clear that the Weston dream had to be directly related to the responsibility in the trial I had and to Rod. 11 capital cases over the last 30 years. And every single time, before every single case, I've had the Weston dream. The dreams have all taken place at Weston, but each one is unique. Some have featured my dearest friends. Some have starred my one-day crushes. Others have featured students from other classes whose names I don't exactly remember. And sometimes I see kids I am pretty sure I've never met. Sometimes the dreams take place in the 80s, when I was a student. Other times I'm returning to Oxford after many years. Sometimes I'm just starting school as a 50-something-year-old freshman. It would be easy to assume that these are stress dreams. I'm about to enter a stressful time of my life, and perhaps my subconscious uses the occasion to bring back to me another stressful time in my life. After all, college was filled with stressful moments. But to be frank, high school and law school were a lot more stressful than my time at Weston, as was the second half of the Carolina Duke Final Four game. But the dreams before my capital trials do not happen in high school, law school, or Louisiana Superdome. Because I know stress dreams. My subconscious deals with them like the clerks used to deal out samples when we went Krogering. The famous exam dreams so many people report having. My brain routinely edits, reworks the scenery, and refines the exam dream to its most torturous self. I'm old enough that my kids have finished college, but I routinely wake up in a sweat because it turns out that I have been skipping both high school science and math classes for months. I know stress dreams, and my Western dreams are not simply stress dreams. Something else is going on with my brain. There is something in my mind that connects defending a client facing death with my Western experience. I don't think it has anything to do with reading of Wolves and Men, or going to the Serpent Mound before sunrise with Here Comes the Sun being belted out by our colleagues, or even watching our professors drop water balloons from the top of Peabody Hall to discover whether Aristotle or Galileo was right. But something happened in the middle of those CC and NS and SS classes, which was profoundly resonating with me in January of 1995, and continues to do so today. And then I talk about, I'm not going to read all of it, but about the fact that Deaf PACE is a kind of interdisciplinary and learning that too, and also about learning to work in a group like I did, and learning to be part of a community. And the greatest one of the things is Western is being part of a community, and part of being a death penalty attorney is being part of this community, part of it. But then I'm going to conclude with it. But if I can outguess my subconscious, I think the real reasons for the dreams has to do with that Western created the desire, the obligation, and the mission to fight for people who the government condemns as evil and worthy of nothing more than death. I did not become against the death penalty because of Western. I opposed the death penalty long before I started college. Western did not create a desire in me to become a criminal defense attorney. I got the bug to do criminal law based on internships and the job I had right after college. But there was something in the mix of NS, CC, and SS that compelled me to believe that I should be fighting for social justice. We learned about how our world not only impacts the elite, but the oppressed, and that we should be concerned about it. I felt like we were the legacy of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, the free civil rights workers who were trained at Western and who were murdered in Mississippi. The sense of social justice and purpose came from our classes, our professors, and our friends. So when I go to trial, I am mostly trying to save the often severely damaged guy society wants to call evil, but who I care about deeply. I also am trying to fight against the institution of the death penalty one client at a time. And I am trying to fulfill the obligation and mission Western installed in me. It's something my subconscious realized 30 years ago. Right now, I represent 2 clients who are facing capital trials. When each of their crimes happened, they were the age I was when I was at Western. Their lives have been filled with trauma and neglect. Their chances of getting executed are greater, not because of their crime, but because they were born in poverty, and because they were born persons of color in a racist society. Like Rod 30 years ago, I care about both of them immensely. I desperately want the state to stop the state from trying either of them capitally. I want to stop it because stopping the state from proceeding capitally is good for the movement I care about, and most importantly, I want them to live. But if I have to go to trial, my team and I will use every skill we have to stop their execution, including those I learned in NS, SS, and CC. And at least for one intense night, I will return to Western.